devaluing and harming God. Because when you devalue and harm a young black man, you are devaluing and harming God. Because when you devalue and harm a refugee at our borders, you are devaluing and harming God. Why? Because we are all God's children. All of our bodies are filled with the divine. Straight, gay, trans, lesbian, black, brown, Jewish, Islamic, otherly abled, rich, poor, documented, undocumented. We are all one people, and we are beautiful, and we are powerful together. For me, and I hope for you, this is a watershed moment. The queer community. Seems like yesterday we celebrated the victory of marriage equality nationwide, and we're not going to go back. We will not give up without a fight. And look around at the diversity here. Finally, we are standing in solidarity with each other, with every group in the margins. This is our moment to stand together. This is our moment to stand together and to fight for each other, to give each other voice, to move out of our isolated silos and come out for each other absolutely everywhere we possibly can. And I want to close with an amazing quote that takes us back to the 60s, to the 50s, and we're back there again, I'm afraid. It was written by Martin Luther King, one of my mentors, in prison in the Birmingham jail. They were attempting to write him out, right? They wanted to quiet his voice of inclusion and his voice of justice, and he penned these incredibly powerful words. He said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. We are tied into a single garment of destiny, because whatever affects one affects all of us, indirectly and directly." So my best hope is that we are in this together. A threat to you, my brothers and sisters, my trans community, is a threat to me. And a threat to me is a threat to you. We are in this together, so let's stand shoulder to shoulder, but also stand heart to heart. May it be so. Somebody else's phone.
Thank you, Pastor James. I was raised Mormon, and I was taught that being trans and a person of faith wasn't really compatible, so it warms my heart to see people of faith coming out and supporting our community. And I'd like to introduce one more person of faith, Rabbi Shmuley Yanklowitz. Thank you so much for being here. Please join us.
What an honor to be here with my dear friend, Pastor James, with all of you, feeling that we are in a sacred space. A space that is safe and loving and affirming, where we are seen and believed. And our role to expand this circle, that it should not merely be the few hundred of us here, but this ought to be what the society looks like, what the world feels like, encircled with compassion and with love. I'm here as an ally. I'm here as an ally to say that we see you, we hear you, we love you, and to listen and to learn. For so many of our fellow Americans actually have no clue what is happening, have no capacity to listen or to see. And that, I believe, is our spiritual work today. And so, as the good pastor and so many others mentioned, I believe our ability to see us all bound up together, to not only be in our one issue, that as we saw just this last week, the violent hate crimes against people of color, against families who are asylum seekers, right? The most violent hate crime against my own Jewish community, and many Jews here today. But that it is not about our own particular community. As much as it is also about us standing together, to see each other and to hear each other as allies. And so, friends, I think we have a hard tension today. From what I continue to hear is the challenge of visibility and the challenge of invisibility. The challenge of invisibility when you and we are not seen. When we are not seen for who we are, for who we declare ourselves to be. And the problem of visibility, that once we are seen, we're more vulnerable. That the trans community, once they are seen, become more vulnerable to haters in our society, and the need for us to protect each other with walls of love around each other, to address the invisibility and the visibility. And if you'll permit me to share a theological reflection for a moment, only to honor the diversity of faith here and to honor those who don't hold faith, those who have a relationship to a divinity and those who don't, that in my belief, whoever or whatever this God is, this God does not make mistakes with who is created. They are created to be who they are. To reject that is to reject the creator of the world. To reject the creator of the world who believes is completely fallible in creating someone who shouldn't be who they are. That rather the day you were born was the day that God said the world cannot exist without you. Without you. And in fact, none of us can exist without each other. We need each other deeply to hold each other close, not only politically, to do our job next week, to vote on the side of compassion, to come out, but pastorally, to take care of one another with love. One other theological reflection, with your permission, is that the early rabbis explain that the first human beings were not binary, Adam and Eve, as we often talk about. But the rabbis explain, based on this Kabbalah, this mystical tradition, that there was no first human beings, there was a first being. And that being existed on a gender spectrum, the rabbis explain. And only that being was created in the image of God. Which is to say that divinity exists in the world only when the full spectrum of gender is honored and actualized. Right? So for those who, like me, find powerful the idea of a creator, to understand that this is not only a march for compassion, but this is our belief that to actualize the world, we need everyone to be them true selves. And that will actualize our world together. So friends, let's keep going together. Let's stick together. Let's share our love. Let's do our job next week. And you are seen and you are heard, and I am honored to listen and learn from you today. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. I'd like to bring up Joseph Burwell from Trans Spectrum, Arizona.
Joseph Burwell from Trans Spectrum of Arizona. I have just a few words from my heart. First of all, to tell you what Trans Spectrum is. We are a peer support group for transgender people and folks all along the gender non-conforming spectrum. I'm a transgender man, and I've had the privilege for the past several years to listen in on transgender people's lives. That's an amazing privilege. What have I heard in these peer support groups when we talk to each other? I've heard amazing resilience, amazing strength. I've sometimes heard fear, and I've sometimes heard amazing compassion among ourselves. In fact, I've heard an entire range of human emotion every other Saturday. You know what? We're human. You can't erase a human. You can't erase us. You can't erase us, and we vote. We all vote. We're all here. We transition socially. We transition medically. We transition surgically. And what's more, our whole family, our loved ones, our friends, everyone in our orbit transitions with us. It's not an easy process. Transgender people and people along the gender spectrum are some of the toughest bastards and bitches I know. If you're going to transition, you better have some guts about you, because it's not easy. When you come out at work, when you come out to your family, when you come out to your loved ones, when you come out to your significant other, you'd better be ready, because I hear this in peer support groups too. And I did it. I might remind you again, I'm a transgender man, so I did all this stuff. It's not easy, but we do it because it's life and death to transition. When you need to transition, it's life and death to transition. So, what these folks in DC don't realize is that for them, it's a law, it's a document, it's a feeling. For us, it's life and death. Who's going to win this battle? We are! This is real for us. It's just a concept for them. We're in this together, folks. Every ally, every cisgender person that ever stood up for us, we're all in this together. Trans Spectrum of Arizona was started by a cisgender person. We have our DNA entrenched as a unit with all of us here. We can't do this alone. We need each other. We need that same resilience that we dig into when we decide to transition. If you've been transitioned for a long time, maybe you've forgotten how hard that was in that early going. That first year or two is hard. It gets a little bit easier as you start to pass and you forget a little bit, but kind of like some women forget childbirth. But it's hard, we can do it, we do this together, and it's life and death for us. It's just some principle, misguided principle for them. You can't erase us. Something like this makes us brighter. Thank you, my friends.
Thank you, Joseph. All right, so we have our next speaker is Teresa Mabry, representing, still coming up, okay, Working Families Party, and was a former candidate for Justice of the Peace in South Phoenix. So let's hear it for Teresa.
How y'all doing today? Alright, so I'm a little active, a little interactive. So my name is Maria Teresa Mabry. I am a fabulous queer, gender fabulous, queer black Chicana from Guadalupe in South Phoenix. Alright? And so I decided I was going to run for Justice of the Peace because I was tired of seeing my people being criminalized for being poor. And so we're in election season now. We're saying you can't erase us and we're going to vote. And many of my community cannot vote. We don't have voting rights and we've been strategically disenfranchised. And so my ask for you today is to continue to organize, to get it together and to show up, because Trump's been passing policy that has made my community under attack for a long time. And it's not just Trump, it's America. And so let's not forget that Stonewall was actually a riot. Because there was a riot, right? Trans people of color fought back and they were fighting the police who were criminalizing and brutality, beating them, right? Beating our people. And that same thing is still happening today. And so when we're talking about criminalization, when we're talking about showing up and voting and not being erased, as a gender fabulous black Chicana from Guadalupe and South Phoenix, you're never gonna erase me. And not one day in my life did I give any white supremacists any permission to feel like they could erase who I am, who I'm about, and where I come from. So I've been issued a mandate, because it's my duty to fight, right? It's my duty to win. It's our duty to respect each other, to love each other. There's nothing we have to lose but our chains. All right? So for those of y'all who are here and who are agitated or angry, and for those of y'all who are white, step into your whiteness and deal with it. And let's get together and figure out what we need to do to challenge these systems that continue to oppress our people, that continue to make barriers to make sure that they think that they can say that they're going to erase us. But the fact of the matter is electoral politics is one thing, civic engagement is another thing, but when we're talking about electoral justice, it's a completely different frame. And so when we change the frame to actually address the barriers that make sure that people, regardless of what your status is, regardless of whether you don't have your voting rights or not, that you can actually be participating in this and actually build community power, because that's what this is about. Like, I actually would like everybody to take a chance, look at somebody. And I challenge you all, look around. Look around, because when I got here, it felt really weird. Like there were cliques, there were like people I have never seen, some people I've seen, but we don't roll with each other like that. But the mandate is that we fight together, that we show up. And fighting isn't always about dismantling, sometimes it's about building. But sometimes we gotta tear the shit down to build something different. And so that we have an opportunity. And so if we seize this opportunity, like with Ganamos con Garcia, we're challenged the way folks traditionally outreach folks. Because guess what? There are more queer folks here than there are in DC, and I learned that from Equality Arizona. So there are more queer folks here than there are in DC, than there are in the Bay Area. But what does it look like to actually push and fight for us? What does it actually look like for our folks who are directly impacted to actually be centered in policy and in movement building and creating power? Tangible power, not this thing, because I'm tired of losing them. I don't know about you. You tired of losing it? Yes. Okay, then it's time to get it together. Right. Okay, so we're going to do a chant. Y'all ready? Yeah. Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power, come on y'all, don't stop. Say what? Ain't no power like the power of the people, because the power of the people don't stop. Say what?
To note on organizing, Phoenix, Arizona, and Arizona has an enormous LGBTQ population. And we need our lesbian, gay, bisexual, queer, and ally folks to step up and stand up for the trans community throughout Arizona. We also need to pay attention to the vast diversity of our community. This community, especially in Arizona, is black, brown, indigenous, it's women-led. We need to take note, respect that, and I hope that you're seeing that in this rally today. This took a lot of different people, a lot of different organizations to put together, but I hope that you're seeing different voices being centered. On that note, we want to invite Trans Queer Pueblo up to speak. They were one of the last speakers. Please come on up. Okay. So I'm in. What? Yeah. Yes. Come up, please.
Come on.
Hello everybody, how are we doing tonight? I'm here as a part of Trans Queer Pueblo. I am a non-binary queer person. I'm Latina, and today, as you all can see, I'm wearing a calaverita. That's because today is Day of the Dead, and I'm here honoring all the trans, queer, Latino lives that we've lost throughout the years. And I think it's important that when we talk about empowering Latino communities, we actually also talk about all the barriers that exist that prevent people from being able to live in this country peacefully. And that includes the way that we allow ICE and police to collaborate within the city of Phoenix, and especially within Arizona as a whole. And because right now, if you haven't heard, there's a migrant caravan ready to come into the U.S., and the way the United States government responded was by sending 5,000 military troops to the border to block them. And so when we talk about empowering, and also, like, I remember reading that one of the, not just one, it's like thousands of people within this, but one person specifically who was interviewed was a gay man from Honduras, and he talked about how he had more meals in that caravan than he had in his whole life at his house. And part of coming together and part of fighting and even part of voting is knowing when to stand up to white supremacy.
That's the truth. Right on. Woo. Come on, Hida.
And so be critical of the people that you vote. Don't just vote for them because they're on the Democratic Party.
Right. Right on.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have some more sponsors to thank. We want to thank Qtopia. We want to thank the Southern Arizona Gender Alliance, TSAS, the Trans Spectrum Arizona, and Transqueer Pueblo as sponsors. And we want to invite up Monica Jones.
Come on, Monica.
So my name is Monica Jones. This is a call to action. This is because last Pride, when trans people of color, queer people of color protested Pride, we were booed.
Right. Right.
You told us to keep our business to ourselves, keep our politics out of Pride.
Book that.
We were told that. There are so many trans women of color right now who are dealing with police in their bodies already. So trans people of color were dealing with police in their bodies before this policy was enacted, are going to be enacted. Our bodies been policed in Arizona for the manifestation laws that target trans women of color who are sex workers who are trying to live in this country, in this state.
Right on.
When we can't, when we try to work in jobs, Arizona does not allow us to work in jobs because it's a right to work to state.
Right.
Our black and brown bodies are policed every day. And so when we speak out, listen to us. And so we're going to ask Pride next year, our National Pride, are you going to center the voices of trans people, especially trans people of color, at Pride?
Right.
Are you going to tell the police, if this policy is enacted, do not arrest trans people for using the bathroom or just existing?
Right.
Are you going to hold your politicians accountable if this policy is enacted?
Right.
What are you going to do to protect trans bodies if this policy is enacted? This is a call to action, so because we cannot just exist and protest. We need a backup plan. We need calls to action to protect trans bodies.
Yes.
Trans bodies are dying. We are dying in the streets without this policy. Imagine what the death toll count is going to happen when this policy goes through. How many trans people of color are going to be dead? How many trans people in general are going to die? How many trans people are going to commit suicide? Are you guys ready to enact, to fight back?
Yes.
Are you ready to hold Pride accountable for the heavy policing of Pride?
Yes. Yes.
Because we sat silent while we marched for marriage equality, and then you said it was our turn. We should have been at the forefront of every policy that was enacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Can we just hear it for all the trans folks who have come up here, spoken their truth, shared their stories? One more time, let's hear it. All right, y'all, so in this country, of all elected offices, only 0.1% are held by LGBTQ people. It's totally unacceptable. We have to change that, and that means not only do you have to get out and get people to vote, but next time you have to think about running for office. So who's a trans ally or a trans person here? Raise your hand. Who's going to think about running for office in 2020? Let's see it. Come on, raise your hands. Keep them up. All right. We have to shift this. We've got two more speakers from the ACLU. Steve Kellogg, please come up.
Well, it seems like every day, multiple times a day for the last 2 years, we have been inundated with bad news and bullshit, right?
Yes.
And I am here today to give you just a little bit of good news, which is that no matter what President Trump says or does, he does not have the last word on the rights of trans people or on any of our rights. We have the last word. The other piece of good news that I wanted to share with you today is that no matter what President Trump does, trans people have rights in our society. If something happens to you that feels wrong, it is wrong. You need to go to an organization or a friend or a partner, someone who can help you make it right. I have my business card here. I will give you my email address and my phone number. I want to hear from any person who feels like they face discrimination based on their gender identity or their sexual orientation. Because the truth is, this isn't just about Trump. This is about people who live in our communities, who have hate in their hearts for people from the LGBTQ community, people who work in these very buildings, people who work in our city halls, people who work in our police departments and in our courts, people who work in our hospitals and our pharmacies. We need to make sure that every time we are harmed by them, they know that we are going to fight like hell. So when you leave here today, I want you, whether you're trans or you're a trans ally, I want you to remember that trans people have rights, and if you hear of something that has gone wrong, you need to work to remedy it, to make it public, because otherwise, nothing is going to change in our local communities. The people who are doing us wrong are going to continue doing us wrong. The last thing I want to say is that if you are able to vote, and this isn't just about voting, but if you are able to vote on Tuesday, please get out there and vote like your rights depend on it. Because they do. Our elections are our rights. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to shout out our last four sponsors, which are, oh geez, why is that so small? Unify Sedona, the Working Families Party, Acme Printing, and the L24 Dems. So thank you so much for supporting today. And I want to invite up Christiana Hammond from the HRC.
Hello, I am Christiana Hammond. I am here today because I am transgender and I am pissed off. And people say it's just a memo, a news story about a memo about a policy that hasn't even happened. What are you so upset about? And the fact is, I am pissed off because we've been treated like a piñata by this administration, being continuously beaten since the day they started. I have here a list of more than 30 actions they've taken against us officially since they've been in office. I'm going to just read the greatest hits here real quick. On January 20th, the day that the inauguration happened, with less than 2 hours after it was sworn in, all mention of LGBTQ issues were removed from the official White House pages. On February 22nd, the Department of Justice and Education withdrew landmark 2016 guidance explaining how schools must protect transgender students under the federal Title IX law, effectively ending the Gavin Grimm case that was scheduled to be heard before the Supreme Court. On March 1st, we're only 3 months, and we're not even 2 months in, the Department of Justice declined to appeal a nationwide preliminary court order temporarily halting enforcement of the Affordable Care Act's non-discrimination protections for transgender people. The injunction prevents HHS from taking any action to enforce transgender people's rights from healthcare discrimination. March 2, the Department of Justice abandoned its request for a preliminary injunction against North Carolina's anti-trans House bill, HB 2. This was an early sign that the administration was giving up defending trans people. Many more, but I'm going to skip a few. March 28th, 2017, so I skipped a bunch, still in the same month. The Census Bureau retracted the proposal to collect demographic information on LGBT people in the 2020 census. April 2017, the Justice Department abandoned its historic lawsuit challenging North Carolina's anti-trans law. It did so after North Carolina replaced HB 2 with the different anti-trans law known as HB 2.0. May 2nd, the Department of Health and Human Services announced a plan to roll back regulations interpreting the Affordable Care Act's non-discrimination provisions to protect transgender people. July 26th, the Justice Department filed a legal brief on behalf of the United States in the U.S. Court of Appeals of the Second Circuit, arguing that the 1964 Civil Rights Act does not prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation or implicitly gender identity. July 26, 2017, President Trump announced via Twitter that the United States government will not accept or allow transgender individuals to serve in any capacity in the U.S. military. September 7th, 2017, the Justice Department filed a legal brief on behalf of the United States in the U.S. Supreme Court arguing for a constitutional right for businesses to discriminate on the basis of sexual orientation and implicitly gender identity. October 5th, the Justice Department released a memo instructing Department of Justice attorneys to take the legal position that federal law does not protect transgender workers from discrimination. January 26, 2018, the Department of Health and Human Services proposed a rule that encourages religious refusals in healthcare targeting trans people, people who need reproductive care, and others. February 2018, the Department of Education announced it will summarily dismiss complaints from transgender students involving exclusion from school facilities and other claims based solely on gender identity discrimination. March 23rd of this year, Trump appointed Roger Severino, a notorious anti-LGBT extremist, as head of the Office of Civil Rights. August of this year, the Department of Labor releases a new directive for Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, encouraging them to grant broad religious exemptions to federal contractors with religious-based objections to complying with non-discrimination laws. It also deletes material from an OFCCP FAQ on LGBT discrimination protections that previously clarified the limited scope of allowable religious exemptions. And then, just a couple weeks ago, we got the new one, the memo, that tries to erase this completely. It's the kill shot on their piñata, and we're not going to let that happen. I will close with a little poem. First they came for the socialist, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. I'm happy everybody came today to speak for themselves, and very happy that people have come out to speak for us. But we have to do a lot more to make sure that this administration stops its attack on transgender and LGBT people in general. We have to get out. We have 4 days left to vote. We have 4 days left to convince people that don't think they need to vote to get out there and protect us all. Thank you.
Oh, I love being on stage. What? So I'm not supposed to be up here, but for those of you that came over with the Let's Be Better Humans bus, we had to move locations because they shut down the street right here in front of the Capitol. So we haven't left you. We're just right across the street if you guys want to have transport back to the church, okay?
When's the last time they can go?
2:45-ish, okay? Thank you.
So there's no doubt in my mind that the Trump administration is in full attack of the transgender community. The lesbian community, the gay community, the bisexual community, the queer community, the undocumented community, the black community, women, everyone who is marginalized in our community, everyone who experiences oppression is under attack under the Trump administration, and we have to work every single day between now and 2020 to change that. Electoral politics are not the whole story, but they're a critical piece of it. And today, tomorrow, the day after that, and the day after that, for this election, you can do a lot to make a difference, to change our reality for 2019 and 2020, and to keep that battle going through the 2020 election. You can sign up today with Ganamos Carden Garcia to do text banking. It is so easy. There is no excuse to not do it. You can watch Netflix and text 3,000 people in just a couple of hours, and that will make a difference in this election. You can get out and knock on doors, canvass this weekend. Every single day we will be out. We'll be in South Phoenix canvassing. Sign up with us. Sign up with HRC Arizona. Get out and do your part to get out the vote. And third, the final thing that I want to ask you to do is to get to know an organization that's working with undocumented people, with black folks, with indigenous folks, and with women. Start volunteering. Show up just as strongly for everyone else in our community who is under attack for the Trump administration. This is our job in our community. It's our job to protect each other. We must show up for each other every single time. I know it gets tired, but it also gives us life to be here with one another. So please show up. Thank you all for coming out today. We have one last speaker. Brianna Westbrook's going to close it out for us. Thank you, Brianna.
Hello, everyone. That's a hell of a crowd. You do realize this is the largest transgender protest rally get-together at the state capitol, probably in Arizona state history, and we're here today, right? I think that shows our force, and we're a force to reckon with, and we will not get our rights ripped away, and we will not be erased. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of the organizations and people that spoke today. Please, let's give them a round of applause. I had a speech prepared, but I decided that wouldn't work because I just wanted to come up here and speak from my heart. We live in a time that's quite scary, and I understand that. I've looked into the eyes of children who identify as trans or gender nonconforming, and I can see the fear in their eyes, and I can see the fear in a lot of the people that I meet in everyday life, at the grocery store. There's communities under attack, not just our community, every single day by this administration and our government. It's not the America that we all envision, and it's not the America that we deserve and our children deserve. Rallies like this are important because what it does is it humanizes us. The people that are here in attendance who may be allies or not know too much about the trans community, look around. We're humans. We have red blood. We have a heartbeat in our chest just like you. And I hope that the Republicans and Donald Trump realize that we deserve the same rights as everybody else. It's scary, but we have something we can do about this. On Tuesday, we can vote. We can vote everyone out. I need you to raise your hand if you voted already. Wow. That gave me chills. If you could see it right now, I have goosebumps. That's way more than the average because generally only about 30% of the population votes in midterms. And I would assume that was damn near close to 100%. So what we need to do, since all of you have already voted, is I need you to take a friend with you to the polls and carpool someone. I need you to bring someone that needs a ride to the polls. At one of our volunteer events, sign up and help. I need you to text voters and tell them to go to the polls. I need you to make phone calls. I need you to knock on doors. Because when we do all of this, we can win. We can beat this. Because we are stronger than the people in power. We have the strength. We, the people, own this country, not Donald Trump. So I want to do a chant, and I want this half right here to say we exist, this half to say we vote. Ready? We exist. We vote. We exist. We vote. We exist. We vote. We excited at this rally, and it doesn't stop here. Tuesday, we still have more work to do post the election. Some of you, I encourage you to run for office. I know that it might be scary, but if we want to really change the laws for our community, we need to have a seat at the table. Whether it's running for your HOA, which is very easy, or running for the school board, running for state legislature, running for the U.S. House of Representatives, running for the Senate, running for to be the governor, run for something. Because when we have a seat at the table, we can change the laws. I believe in each one of you, and I know that you can win and change this country with your voice. You have the power. Now, one more closing quote that Michael gave me. Repeat after me. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Now one more time, a little louder. It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to fight for our freedom.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love and support one another.
We must love and support one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Thank you.
So to finally close us out, Reina from Aliento is going to lead us in a tradition that they do at all of their events that is extremely powerful. Thank you, Aliento, for doing this.
Good evening, everyone. So how many of you have done the Unity Club before, have heard of it? By a show of hands. So I'm going to ask for your help. So my name is Reina Montoya. We at Aliento, every time we close our events with the Unity Club, it comes from the farm workers movement with Cesar Chavez and the Filipino brothers and sisters who were fighting for workers' rights. And something that many people don't like to acknowledge is that Cesar Chavez would call INS, now known as ICE, to really round up undocumented people because it would bring the wages down. And we at Aliento are actually like a migrant undocumented youth-led organization, and people are like, well, why are you acknowledging this? And it is a moment for us to really reflect about what are the voices that are being unheard. And even though that we have leaders that might be bringing a lot of contributions and are doing a lot of things for justice, they might be oppressing other people in the midst of that. So if we can just reflect on that and really honor about what are the voices that are being unheard and how can we really show up to support one another, and hopefully we get it a little bit more right in this generation. So we'll start with a little beat of our heart, and then we're gonna go loud, and you can yell and scream, and then we're gonna finish up with one clap. Ready?
Thank you all for coming. Get out and canvass this weekend, text, get out and vote, and organize together for the rest of the year and the year to come. Thank you. Don't forget to take t-shirts and signs. Also, we'll see you tonight, hopefully, at Poser Bowls at Stacy's.